Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to another Top 5 to Stay Alive, this time for August. It is August 1st, after all, and hopefully you're enjoying your summer and keeping those vaccine pushers at bay. I'll tell you what, once it's FDA approved, which means there's animal studies, I'll think about it. But until then, you know, this COVID's been around for about 20 years, and different forms. They did studies with animals a number of years ago. 100% of the mice died in 2 months. Then they did some studies with some ferrets. Same results, 100%, 2 months later died. And they say, well, humans are different, so the timeline is 2 years. So I'll wait 2 years and see what happens, and then I'll think about it. But until then, shall we begin our top 5 to stay alive? I'm excited. You know, for years it's been the most sacred cow in mainstream medicine. If you don't have a basement low cholesterol numbers, you're practically a heart attack waiting to happen. But now a new international study is throwing all that out the window. Researchers have proven that seniors with high cholesterol are outliving their peers, and it's not even close. It's a bombshell that has Big Pharma and the rest of the mainstream statin pushers shaking in their boots. And it's all based on one big secret about cholesterol that millions of patients are never being told about. If you want an 80% chance of living longer and blowing out more candles on that birthday cake, it's time to ditch the statins, and pronto. That's what Dr. Ufi Rasnov and his research team found when they crunched the data for 19 studies that included over 68,000 seniors. In a nutshell, they discovered that those with the highest LDL cholesterol, supposedly the bad kind, were 80% more likely to outlive those with lower numbers. On top of that, the researchers dared to suggest that maybe, just maybe, we should reevaluate the guidelines recommending pharmacological reduction of LDL in the elderly. Translation: there are millions of people taking statins now who shouldn't be. You think? Well, trust me, the ink wasn't even dry on this study before the mainstream cholesterol crew had their knives out. They were looking for any, and I mean any, flaw that they can find. They even tried to claim that some of these high cholesterol folks were probably taking statins. Right, so why was their cholesterol still so high? Can you believe it? These guys would rather argue that statins weren't working properly than acknowledge you shouldn't be taking them. What nonsense. That's the kind of delusional thinking that mainstreamers twist when they're trying to keep the wolves away from their statin cash cow. The fact is, not all LDL cholesterol is the same, and it's not all harmful. And that's a secret that's been kept away from lots of statin patients. There's a big difference between small LDL and large LDL. And most large cholesterol studies, maybe all of them, have never measured the two types of LDL. Instead, it's all just gets lumped into one category that's come to be known as the bad cholesterol. This issue is an important one because small LDL is really bad. It's not only small, it's also dense in response to inflammation and oxidation by laying down the excess plaque on artery walls. Large LDL, on the other hand, is often called fluffy because it floats along through your bloodstream and does absolutely no harm. To just say LDL does this or LDL does that without breaking it down into smaller, large varieties misses the way that LDL might or might not be doing harm. But there is a way you can alter your diet to stack your LDL on the fluffy size and reduce the deadly dense variety, and you don't have to pop a single pill. Ditch any foods containing partially hydrogenated oils and make sure you're getting plenty of high-quality saturated fats like coconut oil while avoiding simple carbs and fake sweeteners like high fructose corn syrup. That's right, saturated fats actually promote healthy, large, fluffy LDL. Now, tell them that to mainstream, stand back and watch their heads explode again. Oh boy. Topic number 2. If you're taking any drugs to lower your blood pressure, there's a very important question you need to ask. Do I really have high blood pressure in the first place? Well, that may seem like a simple enough question. The answer has been turned upside down and all around. If you're confused, believe me, it's not your fault. And while your doctor may shake his finger at you and say with great authority that recent research has found that the lower the better, that's only half the story. But it's a story you need to hear both sides of, because the danger in taking meds to drive down your blood pressure to an arbitrary goal can have serious life-altering consequences. Just last week, I told you about a group of researchers who came to the startling conclusion that 900 million people in the world are suffering from high blood pressure. Those scientific Sherlocks uncovered that shocking fact by playing the old change the rules trick. If you make a normal blood pressure reading low enough, why, everyone will suddenly have high blood pressure. In this case, they dropped the target top systolic number down to an unbelievable 110. Another study done 2 years ago, dubbed SPRINT, managed to further muddle the issue by claiming that we should all be popping 3 or more risky blood pressure meds to get that top number down to 120 or lower. But one thing all these go-low studies have in common is totally to ignore every single thing we've learned about why blood pressure meds and very low blood pressure can be dangerous. There's something, however, that the most current guidelines on the topic haven't overlooked. Just published recommendations by the American College of Physicians and the American Academy of Family Physicians not only have set the record straight on what age-appropriate blood pressure reading should be, but bear to point out that those drugs have risky side effects. The recommendations are simple. If you're over 60, there's no need to take any meds to lower your blood pressure as long as the top number is persistently no higher than 150. Key word there is persistently. It goes up and down all day long, but if it's persistent above 150, then we've got a challenge. That finding, based on 20 controlled trials, including SPRINT, was graded by the two groups as being a strong recommendation based on high-quality evidence. The only exception is if you've suffered a stroke or heart attack or at very high risk of heart disease. In that case, your systolic reading should be below 140. The president of the American Academy of Physicians noted that these more lenient numbers reflect the risk of aiming lower. And those risks are big, so big in fact that they can be life changers. Other research has found that sending your blood pressure down too low can launch your risk of Alzheimer's off the charts. And if your bottom number falls below 60, your risk of heart disease and death from any cause skyrockets. Then there are the not so little matters of light headaches and falls that come from too low blood pressure. Falling at any age isn't good, but for seniors it can be deadly. And a broken hip can take away your independence, sometimes permanently. Plus, that once you enter your 80s and beyond, high blood pressure has been found to be very beneficial in preventing dementia. That's because higher numbers means more blood and oxygen is reaching your brain. There's little doubt that these two organizations, despite the ACP being the second largest physician group in the U.S. and the AAFP having over 100,000 members, will be feeling the heat over this. That's because if there's anything Big Pharma doesn't want, it's for word to spread in the medical community that prescribing all those blood pressure meds not only isn't necessary, but can be downright dangerous. And if your doctor isn't familiar with these recommendations, or isn't at the very least willing to discuss them, then maybe it's time to find another one. I know every time I go to the doctor for my Medicare check or whatever, it's a battle. Oh, your cholesterol's 178. We got to put you on a statin. Oh, your blood pressure is 140 over 85. We got to put you on. Take a hike. All right, topic number 3. When it comes to CT scans, most mainstream doctors have itchy, trigger fingers. They'll order one up for just about anything. But how much does the mainstream really understand about all the risks and radiation they're exposing you to? A new study on mainstream doctors and radiologists, the same people behind the CT scan craze, has yielded some shocking results. And it's proven just how important it is to ask 3 crucial questions before you or anyone you love agrees to get a scan. Around 29,000 Americans develop cancers that can be traced back to the CT scans every single year. But that doesn't seem to be slowing the mainstream one bit. In 1980, around 3 million scans were done in a year. Now we're up to over 80 million. And the recent research has found that around a third of them are done for no good reason at all. So why would the mainstream put us through the risk of CT scans over and over and over again for little or no benefit? Well, you can bet money is a big part of it. But researchers from the University of Saskatchewan in Canada have stumbled upon another big issue. It turns out that some mainstream doctors aren't as educated about the dangers of CT scans as we'd like to think. A research team surveyed health providers and found they were consistently uninformed about how much radiation you're getting from a CT scan. It reminds me of my doctor when I went for my med check and I gave him a copy of my book. The next time I saw him, he said, "Man, I didn't realize there were that many side effects in these drugs." I'm like, what do they teach you in med school? How to prescribe it. In fact, they were badly underestimating the total amount. That's bad enough, but unfortunately the misinformation didn't stop there. Many of the doctors, radiologists, and imaging technicians surveyed mistakenly thought that the safer scans like MRIs and ultrasounds deliver ionizing radiation, even though they don't. Amazingly, a full 20% of the participating physicians, as well as 6% of the radiologists and 7% of the technicians surveyed, mistakenly believe MRIs cause patients to be exposed to radiation. In addition, 11% of the doctors, 7% of the techs were under the impression that ultrasounds were a source of radiation. The lead author of the study, Dr. David Leswick, called the results troubling. And you could say that again. The fact that some of the very people ordering CT scans don't realize how dangerous they are, or that there are safer alternatives, is an outrage. It's practically criminal. Along with the CT scans, we can also get doses of radiations from PET scans and, of course, x-rays, which include mammograms and dental x-rays. Every time I go to the dentist, they want to do x-rays, and every time I said, unless I got pain, there'll be no x-ray. Dr. Marvin Lippman, the Consumer Reports chief medical advisor, says that while the risk from a single scan is small, the effect of radiation is cumulative. The more you get, the higher your risk for cancer. So the next time your doctor says, "Hey, let's get a CT scan," or any other radiation imaging is needed, here are 3 important questions you need to ask. Number 1, is this test really necessary? I know that may sound crazy, but remember that experts found a third of them aren't. If he's just playing it safe, remind him that sometimes a safe alternative is no scan at all. Number 2, can an MRI or ultrasound be substituted for the CT scan? And then number 3, are you getting the lowest effective CT scan dose? If your doctor or radiologist don't know, make sure they find out. The amount of radiation from a CT scan can vary quite a bit. And that's even at the same hospital and for the same medical reason. A recent study in the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics found that avoiding the highest doses could cut radiation-related cancers by 50%. There you have it. Topic number 4. According to a Just Out report, there's a really good chance that at some point in your life you've taken unnecessary drugs, submitted to tests that weren't required, or undergone a procedure you didn't need. We've been telling you for some time now that loads of unnecessary drugs and medical procedures are being ordered every day. Seeking out care for almost anything, big or small, has become a risky proposition these days. Before you know it, you're being wheeled down a hallway for a scan, a blood draw, or anything else on your doctor's menu of services. And according to the shocking responses to a survey given to over 2,000 doctors, over a fifth of all medical care is a waste of time and a waste of money. Where drugs are concerned, it's even higher. Close to a quarter of dispensed pharmaceuticals are not needed. Submitting to all these tests and taking unnecessary drugs is more than just annoying and expensive. It's downright dangerous. But by just knowing a few tricks of the trade, you can prevent yourself or someone you love from becoming another victim of this medical free-for-all. Well, the cat's finally out of the bag, and when doctors start complaining, you know things have gotten out of control. Dr. Martin Macari, a professor of surgery at Johns Hopkins, asked the doctor he surveyed why so much unnecessary medical care was being doled out left and right. The first reason is obvious: fear of being sued. Thanks to all those TV ads that tell you to ask your doctor about this or that, more patients than ever are pressuring their physicians to take a test or drug. And those doctors apparently think if they don't comply, they could be on the hook for malpractice. Although few people who are injured due to medical negligence ever take legal action, only about 2%. when they do. When they do, it can cause a doctor's malpractice insurance rates to skyrocket. And that's not the only way that this problem can hit them where it hurts. That is, straight in the wallet. Over half the physicians surveyed said that their colleagues, not them of course, don't want to lose out on the easy profits to be gained from all those tests and procedures. So what are you to do when your doctor tells you that you need something that might actually not be necessary? After all, isn't he the expert? While you can't get your own medical degree overnight, there are some other ways to protect yourself when it comes to dealing with a test-happy doctor. First, watch out for the big three. These three tests are not only unnecessary, but they can put you in danger of even more unneeded tests, drugs, and procedures. The first one is called the DXA scan. If you're a woman over a certain age, no doubt you've been told that a DXA scan of your bones is one of the most important things you can do. Don't believe it. The test is probably the most unreliable medical screening you can take, and it can result in you starting on those horribly dangerous bone drugs before you know it. The overdone MRI. Submitting to an MRI for a simple low back pain is not only unnecessary, but it also exposes you to radiation. Not as much as the CT scan, but there is, and often procedures false positives that can have you frightened into other unneeded tests or even surgery. And finally, the PSA pot of gold. Having an annual PSA test to check for prostate cancer is only a good idea for the doctors who profit from it. Not only are close to 80% of elevated PSA findings false alarms, but they lead to more tests, including painful and risky biopsies. Plus, if a PSA does alert a man to prostate cancer, it's typically a slow-growing one that won't kill him. The procedures to treat the cancer, however, are another story. If your doctor orders any of the above three tests, all you've got to do is ask whether you really need it and whether the problem might improve on its own without the test. And that goes not only for tests, but for procedures and prescription medications. If you can pressure him into getting a test or a drug, you can also pressure him not to getting it. Now, if your doctor is ordering tests you've already taken elsewhere because he doesn't have all the access to your medical records, all you have to do is make sure you have updated copies of all those records that you can share with him. After all, they're your property, and you have every right to ask and receive them from primary care doctor and specialist you've seen, whether at a hospital, clinic, or private practice. Just make sure you request your full records, including the notes that were written up after the appointments. And finally, topic number 5. If you have AFib, chances are your doctor has you on a blood thinner. He no doubt told you how having this kind of abnormal heart rhythm can up your odds of a stroke. But there are some things you probably didn't hear, especially the backroom secrets about one of the most popular blood thinning drugs out there. And that's not all. Researchers are now saying that not everyone with AFib needs one of these risky blood thinning meds in the first place. In the last week of September, the British Medical Journal dropped a bombshell investigation that uncovered some classic Big Pharma-style deception. We can only guess at how often this stuff happens behind the scenes without anyone hearing about it. Here's what the British Medical Journal uncovered. Janssen, the pharmaceutical division of Johnson & Johnson, developed the blood thinner Xarelto with Bayer a few years ago. It then launched a major trial called Rocket AF, atrial fib, to get the drug approved. But there was just one little problem. They used a device called the INR ratio to test blood samples and prove that Xarelto was doing its job. And guess what? The INR ratio device was so defective that it has since been recalled. So what did Janssen executives do when they figured out that this device was spewing out junk test results? According to the British Medical Journal, Janssen withheld the data from the Food and Drug Administration about the faulty device. That shady little move was bad news in two ways. One, the Rocket trial continued even though AFib patients who volunteered may have been at risk. And two, Xarelto was approved by the FDA based on the flawed trial result. But it gets worse. Just a few days after BMJ, a British Medical Journal expose, Journal of American Medical Association Internal Medicine published a study that showed Xarelto to be much more dangerous when it comes to the risk of deadly bleed both in the brain and GI tract than all competing anticoagulant drug. So now we know Xarelto is not only incredibly risky med, but one that was approved based on defective test data And what did the FDA do about all that? Nothing. The agency said in a recent statement that after applying a variety of analysis, it somehow was able to figure out that the rocket trial was just fine. No penalty for Janssen or redo necessary. Nothing to look at. Move on. So why bother having a safety trial at all? But in the midst of all these shady maneuvers, there is some good news for AFib patients. 2 studies, one just out, found that having AFib doesn't automatically mean you have to start up on one of those risky drugs. Last year, a big study out of the University of California discovered that around a quarter of AFib patients, ones at low risk for a stroke, have no business being on them at all. The researchers said that the very fact so many low-risk AFib patients were being given blood thinners should be a wake-up call for doctors. And in the most recent issue of Journal of Circulation, researchers found that patients who only have short bouts of AFib also shouldn't be taking a blood thinner. If you're currently being prescribed one of these meds for AFib, whether it's Xarelto or any other brand, make an appointment to see your doctor as soon as possible. Ask him about this research, and if you are in that low risk or short burst group and can stop taking the drug, because as thousands of AFib patients who have filed lawsuits over harms from Xarelto and other blood thinning meds already know, this is 1 ounce of prevention that comes with a pound of risk. And taking CardioForLIfe, think about it. Well, everything we talked about today prevents LDL cholesterol from oxidizing and then sticking to the blood vessel wall, keeps your blood pressure nice and low, and finally, in a lot of cases, people take CardioForLIfe and never have another AFib bout, okay? And then in some cases, it doesn't work. It really depends on what's causing the AFib. But anyways, CardioForLIfe, people keep taking it. Why? Because listen to these testimonies. All of my orders have been delivered on time. CardioForLIfe really does work. I feel better when I use it than when I don't have it with me. I can literally feel the difference. Thanks for that, David. Number 2, we have sold CardioForLIfe for over a decade to help our customers lower blood pressure. Thanks for that, Gloria. Testimony 3, love this product. Without it, I feel sluggish and tired. With it, I'm energized and feel great. Thanks for that, Monopoly. Testimony 4, excellent products, all of them. I started with CardioForLIfe, then tried all the other products. My favorite is the colon cleanse. I have been able to take it for several years and will never stop. I have a large family with lots of small children. We see our share of viruses and funk, but I am always the last one standing. COVID hit our house, and I had a mild flu-like symptom for 2 days. I truly believe that your gut health makes a big difference in your overall health. Thanks for that, Laura. Number 5, the best L-arginine product I've ever tried. I have an increase in stamina when exercising, deeper breaths, clearer mind, and overall better energy. I bought the Smart Pulse to monitor my husband's heart health, and to my surprise, it's proven to be very informative and preventative. He was having 30 extra beats 6 months ago. Now it's down to 0 to 3 extra beats. Consistent CardioForLIfe really helped. We're grateful for this product, and thank you, doctor, for bringing this product to market. Thanks for that, BJD. And finally, this company and products have changed my life along with others I know as well. Highly recommended. Thanks, Jeremy. Well, that wraps up our top 5 to stay alive. Continue to enjoy your summer. I know I am. The pool is in full swing as the grandkids come over. My daughter visited from India. She was here for 6 weeks, and now they had to get all these COVID tests and whatever, but they made it back without any problems, and they're back in Dehradun, India, till next summer. But for the rest of you, I say God bless you all, and God bless America. Go Olympics. Bye-bye.